Thanks for joining us here on News Now on News Central Television with me, Joe Hanson. Let's take a look at the top stories for this hour. Senate demands investigation into NDLEA's allegations of drug involvement against Deputy Senate Leader Yisa Ashiru. 3 states withdraw as Supreme Court reserves judgment in 16 state governors' suits challenging legality of the EFCC. Jailed opposition politician Ayachi Zamel sentenced to additional 5 years, totaling over 30 years in prison. Stay with us here to get the details of these stories and more in a moment. News now begins in the Federal Capital Territory, where the Nigerian Senate President Godswill Akpabio has called on the Senate to invite the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency (NDLEA) and other relevant agencies to provide evidence for the drug-related allegations made against Deputy Senate Leader Yisa Ashiru. This follows a clash between Ashiru and the NDLEA after the senator accused the agency of being corrupt and compromised during last week's debate on a bill to establish the National Institute for Drug Awareness and Rehabilitation. In a statement, NDLEA spokesperson Femi Babafemi claimed that Ashiru's Kwara residence was raided based on intelligence indicating it was being used as a drug joint. However, during Tuesday's plenary, Akpabio dismissed the claims as a personal vendetta against Ashiru. The Senate has formed a 6-member ad hoc committee to investigate the allegations, with Akpabio urging the committee to invite the NDLEA and others involved. He warned that if the agency fails to substantiate its claims, the Senate will take decisive action. Let's also tell you that the governors of Ebonyi, Anambra and Adamawa State have withdrawn from the suit by 16 governors of the Federation seeking to scrap the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit and other anti-graft agencies in the country. This was as a 7-man panel of justices of the Supreme Court entertaining the suit reserved its judgment for a date to be communicated in due time. News Central's Emmanuel Bagudu reports.
The suit was to be entertained by the Supreme Court. However, just before the judgment, the states of Ebonyi, Adamawa and Anambra requested to be withdrawn from the suit, while Nasarawa State informed the court that its application is different from that of the other states.
But our own case is challenging the constitutionality of the directive issued by the NFIU, limiting cash withdrawal for states, knowing fully well that in Nasarawa State we have a social investment policy geared towards enhancing the living standard of the people at the grassroots, where His Excellency the Governor Engineer Abdullahi A. Sule, out of his passion for lifting people out of poverty, initiated a program through which indigent people at the grassroots level are being shared some stipends running into millions of naira, and is a talk of the state.
The Attorney General of the state says that the cash withdrawal limit by the NFIU is making the implementation of its social investment programs difficult.
Now, by the time this policy comes on board to limit the cash withdrawal by the states, it will frustrate this program, and it by extension affects the living standard of the people at the grassroots. So this is why we are in court, not to challenge the constitutionality of the establishment of the EFCC, ICPC, NFIU. These are institutions that are in place to actually fight corruption that is bedeviling the development of this country. So Nasarawa State is still on its feet, seeking for the interpretation of the Supreme Court on the constitutionality or otherwise of that policy. This is why we are here.
All eyes are now on the fate of the 13 governors left in the suit, and of course, whether the status of the anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria will change. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
In the meantime, the Federal High Court sitting in Kano has disqualified the chairman and members of the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission from conducting the upcoming local government elections just days before the scheduled poll on Saturday. The court delivered the ruling on Tuesday in response to a suit filed by a member of the opposition All Progressives Congress APC, Aminu Tiga, who challenged the eligibility of the CANSIC members, including the chairman, citing their affiliation with the ruling New Nigeria People's Party and NPP and their failure to meet civil service grade requirements. In his judgment, Justice Simon Amobeda ruled that the chairman and other members of the commission were unfit for their roles, being card-carrying members of the New Nigeria People Party. Earlier, we were joined by political analyst Ismail Awal, who shared his thought on this.
To see what the state government and the state electoral commission is going to do. But I think most likely what the state electoral commission might do is rush to the higher court, because as you all know, this is a court of a federal high court, which means there are other courts ahead of them. So most likely they are going to rush to the Court of Appeal, and then then the court will ask them to maintain status quo, and then they will conduct the election this coming Saturday. Most likely that's going to happen, because what's happening now in Kano is the State Electoral Commission has continued with all the preparation it is doing in order to hold the upcoming election in Saturday.
Let's now head to Edo State, where Transition Committee has expressed a worry over the withholding of relevant documents by the outgoing administration to enable members of the committee carry out their responsibility. The Secretary of the All Progressives Congress Transition Committee made this known during the resumption of its meeting after a one-day postponement of activities. He says that despite writing to relevant authorities under the current government, nothing has been done to improve the situation.
And we have had interface, both verbal and written, with the relevant officers of government, including the SSG. And we reached an agreement as at yesterday that they were going to do exactly what we asked for, because what they have supplied us at best has not addressed the issue substantially in any form. And we had expected by this morning that would be done. We discussed this morning, he called me, we spoke on phone. When I saw his message that the meeting will be ongoing today, I said no. We had earlier on agreed that the documents so far supplied to us, none of the issues we raised have been addressed. For us to have a meaningful and informed discussion, we need a better set of documents that will address the issues we have raised.
Residents of Umuahia in Abia State seem uncomfortable with the two-day sit-at-home order, which is being denied by the indigenous people of Biafra. They say closing business for 2 days for no justification is just like shooting oneself on the leg. News Central's Chinwe Ugele reports.
It is the day 2 of the sit-at-home that began yesterday, being Monday.
All I have to say is sitting at home is not the solution to whatever crisis it might be.
So I don't see any rationale concerning the sit-at-home. For me, it doesn't make sense.
The outcry by the citizens of the Southeast is born out of frustration from the never-ending order for sit-at-home from anonymous persons.
Everywhere is locked up. People are not doing business. Coming out from my house, it's so difficult. And the few vehicles available, they have hiked the price of transport fare. So it has been very, very difficult. This is not what we asked for.
A lot of people had proposed that the people themselves will have to resist this order for there to be a stop.
Few people are just using this opportunity to maltreat the general public, especially this Southeast. I don't know who is behind all these things, but it is not, the result is not good at all on the general public of the Southeast here. So we as business people, we are entrepreneurs, we are people who use our hands to work out what we eat. We don't have to give in to all these propagandas here and there. We need to stand up, all of us, and say no.
They are troubled that the sit-at-home is causing more damage to the zone each time it is declared. The people want those responsible for the incessant calls for stay-at-home arrested, even as they allege sabotage of the zone by promoters.
So it's something the state government and the region entirely should look into and fish out those miscreants and the people that are sabotaging us economically.
IPOB has also come out to say that they did not at any time order this very stay-at-home. What role can the government play in assuring the citizens that they do not need to listen to any order that comes from non-state actors? In Omar Hafani Central, Chinwe Ugele.
Great report from Chinwe Ugele there. A medical doctor director has been accused of rights violations and unfair labor practices in Lokoja. We'll bring you that story after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's tell you that the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, has flagged off the construction of Access Road 1 by N16 to judges' quarters at the Katampe district of Abuja. The minister during the flag-off ceremony assured that the FCT administration will also focus on other key infrastructures in a bid to make Abuja a model city. Amadine Uyi reports.
According to available data, Nigeria has about 195,000 kilometers of road network, which is the largest in Africa. However, only about 60,000 kilometers of these are paved, with many saying this is evident of an infrastructure deficit in the country.
Nigeria, like many other developing nations, have an infrastructure deficit. According to recent estimates, Nigeria needs to invest about $3 trillion over the next 30 years to close the infrastructure gap and achieve the level of development required for sustained economic growth.
While government has continued to work within its ability to fix this gap, many believe their efforts are inadequate, with the Federal Capital Territory, Nigeria's seat of government, coming under scrutiny.
The road network, power supply, housing, healthcare, and education sectors are some of the areas in urgent need of attention. Here in Abuja, the infrastructure deficit is more glaring as the city's population continues to grow at an annual rate of 5%. This puts pressure on the existing facilities and highlights the need for more access road, more housing, and essential services to cater to the needs of residents.
In a bid to address this gap, the FCT administration has flagged off the construction of Access Road 1 by N16 to judges' quarters at the Katampe district of the federal capital. The minister says that the administration will also focus on other key infrastructure within the city.
We're not only concentrating just on roads alone. As I speak to you now, we have not less than 25 schools to be rehabilitated, because you can't believe it that in a city like Abuja, you just go to the schools, you ask yourself, is it Abuja at all? It's quite unfair.
He assured of the federal government's commitment to making Abuja a model city, especially in the area of key and world-class infrastructure.
Let everybody know that we owe a duty to make sure Abuja competes favorably with other cities of the world. When we travel overseas, we say, oh, beautiful roads. These beautiful roads are being constructed by human beings. They don't have two heads. They have the same head with us, so we can replicate what we have seen overseas here.
He says that funds have been set aside for the project, which is expected to be commissioned as part of President Bola Tinubu's second year anniversary celebration. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
The Nigerian Medical Association has accused the medical director of the Federal Teaching Hospital in Lokoja, Kogi State, of rights violations and engaging in unfair labor practices. The Kogi State chapter of the association says that the rights of its members have continued to be abused, while the working conditions at the hospital has witnessed a steady deterioration in the last few months. Our correspondent Joshua Marai, investigating these claims, has more in this report.
The Federal Medical Teaching Hospital in Lokoja, the Kogi State capital. The edifice boasts of an impressive exterior, admirable to many. However, within the walls of the facility, a raging war has ensued between the hospital chief medical director and some of its staff. Also, several sections of the hospital reveal a different story, as the sections are visibly dilapidated and deteriorating.
God forbid, if anybody should have an accident and is critically ill and is taken to FTH Lokoja, that person will die naturally because of the service delivery and also the poor working condition of that hospital. Sometime in May to June, an attendant died in that hospital because of there was no light in the hospital.
Some members of the state chapter of the Nigerian Medical Association have raised serious concern, accusing the chief medical director of high-handedness and gross rights violation.
Now, what the hospital now does is this. They will take people on locum and casualize our doctors.
In a situation where a doctor is casualized for 4 years, you go every two months to renew your appointment. In the admin, your pension is not there, your promotion is not there, your training and retraining is not there, your arrears are not coming, you are stagnated.
Some members of the Nigerian Medical Association in Kogi State have also expressed concern over the suspension of the president of the Association of Resident Doctors at the hospital.
We cannot be comfortable if any member of ARD Lokoja, Federal Teaching Hospital Lokoja, is being victimized or seem to be victimized for union activities.
All attempts to reach the Chief Medical Director of the Federal Medical Teaching Hospital in Lokoja for comment on the issue have been unsuccessful, as he says that he is unavailable at the moment. In Lokoja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarai.
And over now to education. As the global shift towards digital transformation in education is accelerating, Nigeria continues to integrate technology in its education system. Educationists at the 2024 International Week Conference at the University of Lagos emphasized the need for a holistic approach to digital transformation in achieving better learning outcomes. News Central's Omolola Ololade brings us more in this report.
Across the world, digital transformation is reshaping the learning landscape. From online learning platforms to AI-driven educational tools, technology is changing the way students learn and how educators teach. While Nigeria may have joined in the shift toward digital transformation in its education system, educationists at the 2024 International Week Conference believe there is a need to do more for higher learning to impact learning outcomes.
We've appreciated the opportunity for the digital because then we have access to international partners that can actually do training from abroad, which reduces our cost of bringing them. Before it was a total, and then the digital divide has democratized knowledge. It's always about how you getting the digital access. And I think Tech Fund has really stepped up in terms of library services and e-resources.
We're expanding capacity. We're using technology to process results, to grade scripts, to teach our students, to enlarge our capacity as staff. So it's a continuous journey. It never ends.
The conference, which creates an avenue for experts to examine the current state of digital integration in Nigeria's higher education system, also provides the opportunity to identify the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead.
The rapidity of change, dictates that the NUC, as a regulatory agency, provides the tonic, as it were, and the level playing ground and the motivation to galvanize this very unique and special university constituency so that we are not standing still, but we are catching up with the rest of the world in a very, promising and very formidable way, not from the fringes.
At the level of JAM, we provide the support because we have automated all the system from registration to admission. And what is important in it is that you can rely on the fact that there will be no bias in what you are doing when you rely on technology.
On its part, The Lagos state government believes the digital transformation of Nigerian schools holds immense promise for the country's education system, as it will help improve access to learning and standardize education.
For a university to grow and match up with the global standard and requirement, there must be a lot of collaboration amongst universities all over the world. And that is why what is taking place today in University of Lagos, this International Week, is apt and necessary.
As the educational landscape continues to evolve, education is believed embracing technology-driven approaches remains imperative in shaping the future of Nigerian education. In Lagos for News Central, I am Omolola Ololade.
The United Nations Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, has challenged members of the Nigerian Veterinary Medical Association on the need to maintain food security at all costs. Amina Mohammed was speaking in a virtual address to the 60th Annual Congress of the NVMA in Jos, the Plateau State capital. News Central's Chizoba Nyongwe was there and now tells us more.
These veterinarians converged on the plateau to brainstorm on ideas that would improve activities of the sector and, by extension, contribute to the economy of Nigeria. The United Nations Deputy Secretary General, speaking virtually, urged them to become more intentional about partnerships and food security.
I urge you to continue fostering partnerships that drive investment in research, capacity building, and infrastructure for animal health. Robust data is essential for informed decision-making, and emerging technologies like AI present opportunities to sustain and build on progress made over the past century.
Chief Veterinary Officer of Nigeria, who represented the Minister of State for Agriculture, reassured of the ministry's commitment to the improvement of this sector. Major stakeholders at the event, which also marked 100 years of veterinary services in Nigeria, were optimistic that the event will serve as an eye-opener to issues challenging the sector.
So we are commencing the project with equal step, starting them early. We are going to take veterinarians across our institutions through transparent processes. We are going to select 11 from the faculties. We are going to fly them to Abuja. We are going to put them under intense training. We want to start early in response to the clarion call of Mr. President. We must provide food security for our nation.
Where experts in different fields work separately but come together to solve the problems. And this is where we also need not only sciences but also social scientists. We need computer science. We need policymakers to work together. So all these things works together.
Rising from this gathering, all stakeholders committed to put measures in place to combat the challenges of food security, improved animal health care, as well as that of climate change for a better and healthier society. In Jos for News Central, Chizoba Anyuwi.
Agriculture experts in Nigeria have called for the adoption of agroecology and organic agriculture as a means to combating climate change affecting agriculture. This was as they converged on the nation's capital to review the impact of climate change on farming in Nigeria and food security. The event organized by the Action Aid Nigeria say stakeholders high the chances or challenges facing farmers and in turn citizens of the country.
2 out of 3 households can afford healthy diets. So 2 out of 3. So if you have 3 persons stand here, 2 out of 3 within the West African region cannot. So most times what they eat is just to survive, just to get by, to get the next day. Some good numbers go to bed without food every day. 8 out of 10 children aged 6 to 23 months do not consume the minimum number of food groups they require for optimum growth and development. This is not just statistics, these are human beings.
According to the most pessimistic scenarios, between now and 2060, West Africa will experience a temperature rising of 2.3 degrees Celsius, which means that we will be facing warming of 0 plus 0.6 degrees Celsius per decade. The conventional models of agriculture production adopted to date have shown little resilience to the effect of climate change and sometimes contribute to soil impoverishness.
As we strive to build food security future, agroecology and organic agriculture offers a compelling solution. By embracing sustainable agricultural practices, we can enhance biodiversity, improve soil health, and promote ecosystem services. Agroecology and organic agriculture also empower smallholder farmers, particularly women, to take charge of their livelihoods and contribute to the local economic growth.
We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring to you more stories here on News Now on News Central Television. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's go to Ghana now, where Ghana's parliament was adjourned indefinitely on Tuesday amid a legal dispute over Speaker Alban Bagbin's decision to declare 4 parliamentary seats vacant. The move has effectively halted all legislative activities just weeks before the country's general elections, potentially delaying the passage of key bills and budget approvals. The adjournment followed a standoff between the ruling New Patriotic Party, NPP, and the opposition National Democratic Congress, NDC, which holds a narrow majority after 4 lawmakers defected. At the center of the dispute in Ghana's constitutional rule, which prohibits MPs from defecting from the party they were elected under to run for another party or as independents. The vacant seats include 2 from the NPP, 1 from the NDC, and 1 independent MP. Away from Ghana now, let's go to another country and tell you that in Southern Africa, to be precise, tensions escalated in Mozambique on Tuesday as leading opposition candidate Venancio Mondlane accused the security forces of killing his lawyer, Elvino Diaz, amid ongoing controversy over the country's recent general election. The accusation comes as European Union observers raise doubts about the credibility of the October 9 presidential and parliamentary polls, which are expected to declare the ruling Frelimo party victorious. Mondlane, who is ruling as an independent candidate with the backing of the Podemos party, claimed victory in the elections and stated that Diaz was working on a legal challenge against the results before his death. Official election results are anticipated on Wednesday. Well, let's also tell you that the South African Federation of Trade Unions, SAFTU, has rejected the Labour Laws Amendment Bill. According to the Federation, if passed, the amendments would threaten the livelihoods of workers. The proposed amendment to the Labour Relations Act were given the go-ahead by social partners at National Economic Development Labour Council, SAFTU. SAFTU says Section 77 will affect the workers' rights to strike, and formal hearings will also cease to exist if the employer wants to dismiss employees. To discuss this, we are joined by SAFTU national spokesperson Newton Masuku. Thank you so much for being here, Newton. Can you bring us up to speed with what really is going on between SAFTU and, of course, the mentions, their concerns, so far so good, concerning this story?
Our apologies. I'm Mohamed Rosbe. I'm the National Executive Committee member of South African Federation of Trade Unions and the president of GIUSA, which is an affiliate of SAFTU. Yes, these amendments are rejected by ourselves as a union, as a federation, because they want to roll back all the gains that we've made in terms of furtherance of of the workers' rights. Some of the things, for instance, is that it will be easy to dismiss workers without any form of hearing. They want to entrench and further extend the lifeline of casual labor, where in terms of the current legislation which was fought for by workers in the past decades, you cannot employ a casual labor, that is a worker on short-term contract or a worker on labor broking, for more than 3 months. They now want to extend that to 6 months, meaning only after 6 months, a worker employed as permanent or as short-term contract worker or on labor broker will be deemed the permanent employee of a client company, or of course, in the case of the state, of the organ or department of the state. They also want to now reverse the gains insofar as minimum wages, which are already appalling at somewhere between 4,500 to 5,000 rand. They want to say it must be calculated on a cost to company, meaning what will then happen is that where at the moment employers, if you are working 20 days a week, 8 hours a day, and 20 days a month, 8 hours a day, you are most likely to end up with 4,500, and if more, somewhere between that and 5,000. You are going to end up with 2,500, 3,000, because you'll be deducting from that minimum wage a deduction for unemployment insurance, a deduction from compensation or for injury and diseases, which is a statutory insurance as well, a deduction for provident funds, which are currently not calculated. They also want to limit instances at which you can be referring, the case of unfair dismissals or of unfair labor practices. So they want to exclude demotions. They want to exclude, the unfair promotion, even in case of where a person has legitimate expectation of being promoted. They can't challenge that in courts and all the things and so on. So these are things we reject, and we say is part of an onslaught against the working class that this government of neoliberal unity, masquerading as government of national unity, want to impose on us, and we totally reject that.
All right, Mr. Sebe, what potential impacts do you foresee, especially for the rejection of these laws? What do you think it would do to the economy on a broader perspective?
I mean, the reality is that this, is another attempt at redistributing the wealth of this country from the working class, from the poor, to the tiny elite of rich people who have monopolized the private ownership of the economy, right? You already have, under this black majority, democracy, the most unequal society, because of distribution of wealth and income. And you have a situation wherein, one of the CEOs of the top mining companies, that is BHP Billiton, that is mining in this country, has earned 234 million rand, for instance, in income, at the same time as the worker on minimum wage is obviously getting this very pitiful amount that has absolutely no relation to the cost, of living at the present moment. The result of which is that it will take a worker on a minimum wage, on average 114 lives, in each of which life will be working 40 years without interruption, just for them to be able to earn what the CEO has earned in 1 year. That is a level of inequalities we are dealing with. That is also affecting, obviously, the cost of food, which is in excess of minimum wages. The cost of food itself is estimated at 5,270 rand and more. And the cost of transport at 2,000 rand a month. The cost of accommodation and housing, 2,500 to 4,000. And I'm not speaking about workers staying in suburban mansions or even townhouses that are decent. I'm talking about workers in backyard rooms in townships in this country. And of course, a single, flats in deliberated sections of the city. This is the reality of the cost of living, which the current minimum wage bears no relation to. But instead of them increasing the minimum wage, which we demand 15,000 rand minimum wage, which is almost 3 times more than what they are actually having at the present moment. They now want to reduce even the pitiful amount that we reject. And this coming alongside privatizations of the ports, privatizing of many public services that this government want to carry out, as well as further neoliberal structuring that we see outsourcing and more precarious employment of many workers and commodification of basic services. It will escalate the cost of living to another catastrophic levels where our people are going to be plunged in horrific levels of poverty, hunger, and starvation we are seeing in many parts of South Africa, where in Eastern Cape, a woman killed herself and ate, I think, many children, all of her children, and because of the level of debt she had.
All right, Mr.
And she was
Sebi.
discovered.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, you've expatiated on the economy and what this would mean, especially looking at their demands. Most importantly, you've also touched on the impact from cost of living and so on and so forth. I want to say thank you so much for joining us, Mamatwe Sebe, who is the GUSA president. And apologies, I initially had referred to you to as the SAFTU national spokesperson, although we're hoping he joins us later on in the course of other news bulletin. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, let's go to the north now. Tunisia's jailed opposition politician Ayachi Zamel, who recently challenged President Kais Saied in the elections, has been handed additional prison time, raising his cumulative sentences to over 30 years. Zamel, one of only 2 candidates allowed to run against Saied in the October 6 presidential election, was arrested in early September, shortly after his candidacy was approved by electoral authorities. On Monday, a court in Caron sentenced Zamel to an additional 5 years in prison over allegations of falsifying ballot endorsements. Zamel, a former lawmaker and businessman, secured around 7% of the vote, while Saied won over 90%, according to the election board, ISIE. Party presidential candidate Alvaro Delgado has called for the continuation of the center-right National Party government during his final campaign rally before the October 27 elections. On October 27, Uruguayans are set to cast their votes to choose the successor of President Luis Lacalle Pou and renew parliament. The election will go to a runoff in November, since none of the candidates have more than 50% of the vote.
Nosotros, a partir de lo que este gobierno generó, es que vamos a un segundo piso de transformaciones, porque la alternativa es volver al pasado, al peor pasado, al cual ni yo, ni ustedes, ni yo queremos volver. A esa gente le vamos a pedir que piensen en quién te da certezas, que piensen en quién te da tranquilidad, en quién te da paz.
Anyway, from that, let's go straight to our business desk and find out what's the latest.
As the initial phase of capital raising activities concludes in Nigeria, financial analysts have attributed the delay in the allotment of shares to the investor verification process being conducted by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Following the announcement of the new capital base by the CBN in March, some banks have gone to the market to raise funds. They have approached the market to raise funds via a combination of public offers and rights issues. These lenders raised a total of approximately 1.26 trillion naira, that's about $770 million, in the last 2 months to meet the CBN's requirements. The government in Ghana said it recorded a marginal oversubscription of Treasury bills auction. However, this came at the expense of a rising interest rate. According to the auction results by the Bank of Ghana, the government got 4.195 billion Ghanaian cedis from the sale of the short-term instruments, as against a target of 4.035 billion Ghanaian cedis. All the bids tendered were accepted, About 83% of the bids, approximately 3.52 billion Ghanaian cedis, came from the 91-day bill. 545.83 million Ghanaian cedis were tendered for the 182-day bill. However, 128.52 million Ghanaian cedis were offered for the 364-day bill. Meanwhile, interest rates surged on the yield curve for the second consecutive week. Finally, our 2024 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group is ongoing in Washington. Meanwhile, the IMF has released its latest World Economic Outlook report, where it forecasts that global growth will ease slightly to 3.2% in 2024 and hold at that level through 2025. Despite stable figures, the IMF cautions that there are important regional and sectoral shifts affecting global economic trends. In sub-Saharan Africa, growth is predicted to remain at 3.6% this year, rising to 4.2% in 2025 as weather shocks and supply chain constraints diminish.
But then, yes, the risks are also building up. What risks are the ones that we think are the most relevant? Well, geopolitical tensions, fragmentation, leading to increased tariffs, leading to potentially spikes in commodity prices related to what might be happening in the Middle East. That certainly would be something that could add inflationary pressures, weaken activity, so not a good development.
And that's all on business news. I am Lekon Onobanjo.
In the world of sports, an 89th-minute late goal helped Nigeria women's under-17 national team. The Flamingos beat host Dominican Republic early Wednesday in Santo Domingo in the ongoing 2024 FIFA Under-17 Women's World Cup. Midfielder Shakirat Moshood collected the ball from 25 yards and launched a powerful left-footed strike at goal, which went past the Dominican goalkeeper, marking a fourth in the tournament. The win is the Flamingos' third consecutive as they emerged Group A leaders above Ecuador, host Dominican and New Zealand. The win in their final group game has helped them amass a total of 9 points. The Flamingos have been in blistering form in the South American nation, winning their first 2 games, scoring 8 goals and conceding just 1. Coach Bankole Oluokere's side began the tournament with an emphatic 4-1 win over New Zealand in the Group A opener at Cibao Stadium in Santiago de los Cibarrios, and followed that up with another impressive 4-0 victory over Ecuador. In the UEFA Champions League match, AC Milan defeated Club Brugge 3-1, highlighting contrasting fortunes for Nigerian players Rafael Onyedika and Samuel Chukwueze. Onyedika, who started for Brugge, was sent off in the first half, giving Milan a numerical advantage. Despite this, Brugge equalized through Sabi earlier in the second half. AC Milan responded with substitutions, bringing on Chukwueze and Noah Okafor, both of whom made an immediate impact. Christian Pulisic and Tijani Reinders scored for Milan, with Okafor assisting Reinders for his first goal and Chukwueze assisting his second, sealing the victory for Milan. And that's all we have for you in the world of sports and also the news for this hour. But before we go, a quick look at some of our major stories. Senate demands investigation into NDLEA's allegations of drug involvement against the Deputy Senate Leader Yisa Ashiru. 3 states withdraw a Supreme Court reserves judgment in 16 state governors' suits challenging legality of the EFCC. Jailed opposition politician Ayachi Zamel sentenced to an additional 5 years, totaling over 30 years in prison. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and also stream live on Facebook and on YouTube. I'm Joe Hanson, thanking you for watching. Good morning.